so my mom will be satisfied with me.
Go to my dream school.
My parents make me.
Because I want to be successful in the business field I choose.
My parents.
So if I want to go to a better college, then I gotta have better grades.
Going to college.
Beat my brother.
Well, so I can get into a good college and so I can get college credit.
Wanting to go to college.
Go to college.
Success in my job later on in life.
Really want like a good education so I could live somewhere and support myself financially.
Successful in my future career.
Going to college, getting out of my house, and having a good career.
Intrinsic motivation involves engaging in a behavior because it is found rewarding on a personal and internal level. Essentially, intrinsic motivation is performing a task for its own sake rather than the desire of some external reward. On the other hand, extrinsic motivation occurs when one is motivated to perform a behavior or engage in an activity in order to earn a reward or avoid a punishment. I would say that I am both intrinsically and extrinsically motivated because I become self-motivated from my parents. They won't punish me, but they inspire me more like. My parents make me want to do good. Me watching them and them having such high expectations for me make me want to go and become something better. They influence me to be something really good and to always strive to learn. My dad always had this saying that you never will stop learning and that you always will constantly learn, even when you're grown up. Even when you're old, you always will learn. And so I apply that to myself, and I come to school, I do want to learn. And I am influenced to choose a good college, which would be Baylor, and to keep motivating myself to do better and to keep striving further. Both of these motivations can be applied to the academic world. Students can have intrinsic or extrinsic motivations. For example, working hard in school to receive a good grade or to please a parent can be viewed as extrinsic motivation, whereas working hard and applying oneself in school because the genuine enjoyment of learning can be viewed as intrinsic motivation. Unfortunately, in schools today, there is a larger presence of extrinsic motivation as opposed to intrinsic. Many students do not try hard in school because they actually enjoy learning. Rather, they work hard in school in order to get a good grade, to get a good GPA, and go to college. Many students only try to get these rewards, and in return, the quality of education is falling behind. Our research has brought us to believe that intrinsic motivation is better for the sake of quality education. However, there is a much larger presence of extrinsic motivation found in schools today.
My motivation for school is definitely an extrinsic pressure because my parents put so much pressure on me to succeed and do well in school, and I'm compared to my brother's grades and how well my mom did in school, and it really makes me feel like I should strive harder, but sometimes it pushes me away from school. But I can also say I have the intrinsic motivation because I want to get into a good school to get a job because I really want to go into nursing, and if I were going to choose a school to get into, I would go to Baylor, which is really hard to get into. So I'm trying to push myself to get good grades and to get good test scores so that I can get into Baylor since they have really high standards.
Our group conducted a survey of our peers by handing out documents with 4 questions. The first question asked what percentage the student was in academically. The second question asked for the student's number 1 motivation for academic success. The third question asked if the student enjoyed school, as in learning new things. The final question asked what the student planned on doing after high school. The results of the survey showed that the majority of the students who were intrinsically motivated tended to reflect a higher percentage of their class, and over 80% of the students we surveyed were extrinsically motivated. These results support our thesis statement that intrinsic motivations, meaning the actual desire to learn, are better for the sake of education, yet there is a larger amount of students that are extrinsically motivated. Teachers provide good insight on the different types of motivation present within students. They are able to easily observe how motivation levels vary depending on the type of student or the difficulty of the class.
And how do you see a difference in motivation level between the on-level class and the AP class?
It's really in motivation in the sense, with my AP students, I see intrinsic and an extrinsic motivation. Intrinsically, because all of them naturally just want to be good at whatever they do, not necessarily just in physics or anything like that, but any other AP class they're in, any other out-of-school activity that they do, whether it's football, baseball, orchestra, jazz band, any of that stuff. They all want to do as good as they possibly can in those areas. So it's a natural intrinsic motivation. Now, not to say there's not extrinsic. There could be a parent kind of overlying, saying, hey, you got to do well, or they just want to impress their friends or just get that grade. That could be their extrinsic motivation. But a lot of them do have that natural intrinsic motivation where they just want to succeed in everything.
My parents always taught me from a young age that I was supposed to try hard in school. So from the beginning, I've kind of been externally motivated to try hard and get good grades. But as I grew up, I realized that I liked to learn about some subjects. So I've been intrinsically motivated about algebra and pre-cal and especially psychology because I really am passionate about psychology. And I've known that I wanted to do that since I was probably 10. So I get good grades in those classes because I really just enjoy learning about them. But in the other classes, I still get good grades, like history and science, because I just have to get the good grades. And that's what my parents taught me, and that's what I have to do to be able to get into college. And I need the scholarships to go to college, and that's what I was taught since I was a kid.
Another pattern that we've noted is that motivation levels vary depending on the type of school a student attends. Differences between private schools or public schools can alter a student's motivation and also change the level of extrinsic factors. Parents tend to have a more active role in the schooling of a student who attends a private institution.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference you've noticed between your public school students when you're at PISD versus your private school students at John Paul II?
I've noticed that you're able to actually develop a stronger relationship with public school students. I'm not saying that parents have any less of a relationship with their students in public school than they do in private school, but I think that students learn more about the importance of independence and being able to rely on themselves and self-reliance versus always depending on their parents to be the person to speak on behalf of them. Every community is very dependent on the parents being part of the learning experience as well. However, I do feel that if the parents are too involved in the learning experiences, students don't learn enough independence and they don't learn to speak for themselves. They learn to self-advocate. And so the difference really I've seen now that I'm teaching in private school from my years in public school is I see that the parent has a stronger influence within the learning team, and thus students don't learn to communicate for themselves as effectively.
Do you think that having that parent relationship over-involved in their academic lives would hurt them when they go to college and they're not around their parents 24/7?
Absolutely. In fact, I think that that's probably the strongest influence for them as people prepare to go off to college is if you get in a pinch, can't you handle it yourselves? And if you can't, when you're in college, you're bound to have that pinch happen sometime in the first semester. And many people discover that they can't handle it on themselves because their parents have been doing it for them. Some of my smartest students in private school, regretfully, are not equipped for going off to college and handling all of the other situations besides just academic performance because their parents have been handling the situation for them all the way through high school.
Teachers can also easily observe the difference in motivations between the higher level and on-level classes.
With my Physics 1 students, it is majority the ones who are wanting to just get through it. They are just simply extrinsically motivated by that grade or parents saying you got to get through this. There's less intrinsic motivation for them because typically whenever they get into Physics 1, it's not something that they would choose for themselves. They were basically forced into it. So a lot of them don't see it as a necessity. And really that kind of boils down to the difference between what my AP kids, my Physics 1 kids have in motivation. Is the AP kids, they choose, or for the most part they choose. There might be some outlying parent that forces a kid into it. I don't know that though. But for the most part, my AP students choose to be in that class. My Physics 1s, they really don't have a choice. So their intrinsic motivation to be successful in this class might not be there because they might not see the need for it.
Okay, so I'm definitely extrinsically motivated. I would say that my parents from a really, really young age have always told me that I have to get certain grades or else I'll get in trouble, and that I have to do well in my classes because they expect it of me. So that's a big reason why I work hard academically, because I want to not get in trouble. And another thing that has really motivated me was for like my whole life I've wanted to go to one school, which is the University of Michigan. And they have certain requirements there, like I have to get a certain GPA, be in a certain rank, have certain scores on my SAT and ACT. So for all of my high school career, I've been motivating myself to meet those requirements so I could eventually go there. So that's definitely extrinsic motivation because it's like a reward at the end. I would definitely be lying if I said that I was intrinsically motivated, because I honestly don't come to school because I enjoy learning, because I want to learn and I want to know about history and stuff. I just come because it's what's like required of me and what I have to do in order to achieve my goals.
There's a misconception that only good grades and good GPAs result in the success of students in the future. There are students who motivate themselves and are not necessarily in all AP classes that achieve success with their endeavors.
Why did you participate in your extracurricular activities instead of taking more AP courses?
This is Taylor Chambers, an excellent example of an intrinsically motivated student. After graduating this year, she will attend West Point Military Academy, a school with a 9% acceptance rate.
For me, it's very important to do the things that I enjoy doing rather than the things I think will look good on a resume. For example, I decided to do jazz band this year instead of maybe taking an extra AP class. And I've also done sports and student council, which may not have boosted my GPA, but they were still important to my development as a person, and they're things that I enjoyed doing. I think that because I chose to do the things that I enjoyed doing rather than focusing on what would necessarily get me into a good college, that contributed to my desires to go to West Point and eventually my acceptance into West Point. So,
what is your personal motivation?
For me, I believe that if you're going to do something, you should do something well. So in school, I always try to do my best just because I think it's the right thing to do.
School is very important in the lives of children today, with many pop culture aspects like movies, TV shows, and songs focusing on schools or grades.
Good news, Turner. You've taken F to a new level. I'm going to give you a Super F!
Boy, am I tired of getting bad grades.
This brings us to the many problems our school system faces today. Students don't learn curriculum to retain the information, they just learn information in order to pass their class or get a good grade. There is more of a focus on the resulting grade rather than the actual quality of learning for our students. With the huge influence of grades, this can bring many people to resent learning at school, as just heard in Alice Cooper's rock hit School's Out. So how do we solve the problems of the current schooling system? Students need to be taught from a young age that although grades are important, they aren't everything. Kids need to push themselves rather than have some external force push them. Once parents, teachers, and students learn this, then school will become a less hostile environment. Just because a kid may not understand a concept does not mean they are stupid or bound to fail. It just means they have a different motivating factor, and that's okay.
Another thing is with AP students is they have the ability to comprehend and process this information a little bit more differently than another student. Now, the reason they probably chose this class is because they're good at it. They have that kind of mentality to understand these concepts. They have that visualization. I have that visualization. That's why I teach it. However, if you try to put myself, and I'm using myself because my AP kids, I don't know how well they do in other classes, but if you try to put me specifically into an English class, I would struggle because that is not how my brain functions. Now, with the case of a Physics 1 student, I get a broad range of students. So I do get the students who are good with this class because they understand the math, or they are good at they're visualizing the concepts, or they can do both. But I do get those students who have a difficult time just because their brain is not the same as mine, or not the same as mine, but their brain is not accustomed to this sort of thinking process or this thought process. Not that they couldn't eventually get it. It's just it's more difficult, and that gives the illusion that they're dumber. That's not the case. It's just the fact that this is a more difficult concept for their mind to get wrapped around. Just like it's harder for me to go into an English class and write analytical papers. I hate that. It's like pulling teeth for me. It's just something I cannot get my brain wrapped around. And now, if you think about it, I'm an AP Physics teacher, so I'm not stupid. It's just I have a difficult time conceptualizing that. So saying that a regular student or his quality of work is less, it might not even be because of the mental capacity. It's just really because they have a more difficult time with this subject because that's not where their intelligence is. So that might give the illusion of an inadequate student versus an adequate student. It's just different levels. Everybody's different. You can't judge everybody by the same standard.
Okay, from a young age, my parents made it very clear to me that anything I wanted to succeed in life would come from my own doing. So my motivation for school is very intrinsic. How I keep my motivation going is I usually set a goal for myself. Like, my goal right now is I want to be on a surgical team for Doctors Without Borders. So to get there, I have to get good grades in high school so I can get into college. And from there, I have to get good grades in college and get into nursing school so that I can be on a surgical team and hopefully be a scrub nurse. So my main motivation is just setting goals for myself and really wanting to reach them. Because otherwise, I wouldn't have anything to work for. If I don't have anything to work for, I'm just not going to do the work at all.